Hi, I'm Fiona from the Life Reboot, and in this video, we're going to be taking a little look at sugar. In particular, why sugar might be damaging for your health as well as your waistline, and some signs to recognize this. Now, sugar is big news at the moment. It seems that everywhere I turn, maybe it's because that's what my focus is, that I am reading about various different monitors that you can have and trackers to see if you're having too much sugar. Too much sugar is a very individual thing, by the way. And then, of course, there are some nicely priced programs of how to do that work and to support. And in fact, this is something that I did last year. I was part of a trial or a blood sugar monitor for a month. And what I found was really interesting about that was I actually knew in my body that I wasn't tolerating sugar too much, that I was maybe having some things that weren't suiting me. And all the tracker did was just confirm that. And so I believe, by all means, get a tracker if you want one, but we have an inner wisdom and an inner knowing, and we know, well, and I'm going to tell you what some of the signs are, but we know, don't we, when things aren't quite right. And sometimes we sort of busy ourselves too much so that we kind of avoid and distract ourselves from what the inner wisdom is. But this is all part of what I call reclaiming your body wisdom. And I will be looking at some of my notes, so apologies if my eyes go slightly to the side. And this is part of my own journey to heal my relationship with sugar too, which I am on and off. And a little caveat that please be kind to yourself, because if you don't have the best relationship with sugar, and there are some experts who say the best relationship with sugar is none, that may be right for you, or it may be a bridge too far. I think it is for most people who I've worked with, certainly, and people who I know. But it's trying to find the right balance. Isn't it always about balance? So, yeah, we're going to take a look at that. And one of the issues is brain fog, which I'm finding yeah, that's coming up for me quite a lot. And it's a sure sign. So, shall we talk first about what happens? Well, actually, what do I mean by having sugar? Because it's not as straightforward as having a spoonful of sugar in your tea. And it's not always just sugar. Generally speaking, yes, it is sweet foods and some of the healthier ones too, such as honey and agave and coconut sugar, coconut syrup, date syrup. These can all have an impact on your blood sugar levels, and I'll explain what I mean by that as well. Again, very individual. I'm not saying that things like honey and coconut blossom sugar don't have some health benefits, but if we're willy-nilly swapping those for the white stuff, which some say is as addictive as cocaine, and that makes sense to me. I don't know about you, but if we're just doing that kind of straight swap, that's probably not good for our health and well-being either. Okay, before you start shouting at me for that, but I've heard that agave's this and honey's that. I'm purely talking about the impact on your health and well-being. And you might be fine with it and you might not. Chances are, if you're here, you're curious at the very least. So sugar is the white stuff and sweet, basically sweet things. For some people, it could even be sort of starchy foods as well, like sweet potato, certainly dried fruits, because they're so concentrated. Um, Sweeter fruits, such as things like mango and pineapple and bananas, particularly when they're very ripe, can also impact your blood sugar levels. But even other white products, and by this I mean things like white bread, white rice, basically things which have been refined. And it's anything that your body breaks down into a sugar, also known as glucose, if you know anything about chemistry, biology, that's the one, isn't it? Biology. Yeah, if you know anything about biology, how the body breaks down starchy foods to the simple molecule of glucose. And that's what I mean by sugar, really. And so it's quite a broad spectrum, even things like, it's mainly snack foods as well. um, Things like potato chips, and even some of those healthier ones, and certainly drinks, oats also, and oat milk, certainly. I had a little bit of an interesting learning around oat milk and what that did to my blood sugar levels. So that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about by sugars, which break down in your body into your blood sugar levels. So the body's done its clever job, and then the glucose is whizzing around your body. And the body can actually only handle, I think it's about 2 teaspoons of sugar at any given time, which is about 8 grams. So not very much. If you start to read labels, if you're a label reader, then do check that out, because you'll know that it's not very much. And there was something else there that I was going to say, but it's pinged out the way. So I'll move on to yeah, talking about blood sugar levels and how your body can only have 2 teaspoons at once. There is a little bit extra to that. And what happens is the body then produces insulin from the pancreas, and insulin will take out the excess sugar from your blood, and it stores it. Now, it stores it quite helpfully in your muscles, unless they are full, and your liver, ditto, and then you'll know where else it's stored. Generally around the middle, but it's stored as fat. And fat is quite helpfully just your body's storage system. It's like, if you've got a house with loads of storage and you're shoving loads of stuff in, that's the same thing for your body. It's your storage system. And around the middle is a quite useful place to store that extra energy, because that's all it is, energy. And because then you can readily access it if ever you run out of energy. And that is partly one of the issues, that we rarely in this modern world run out of energy, because there's a shop at every corner. You don't have to go very far, do you, to have a shop? Not like years gone by when there were no shops. You'd have to go out and pick or kill your food. And great that we don't have to do that, but it's also got its very modern problems. So I think that's all I want to say about blood sugar levels, and hopefully you understand now what I mean when I talk about sugar and the impact. And the good thing is the body needs to have sugar, glucose, because every single cell in your body needs sugar in order to operate. So far, so good, you say. But when we think about the influx that we're having, and the fact that we're probably having too much, particularly if you don't exercise a lot and burn it off, then you've got this handy storage. And so various things start to happen when we're having too much. Number one is it can actually lead to cravings, because your blood sugar will spike if you've eaten something that is starchy sweet. Your blood sugar spikes, and then it will crash down. The higher it goes, the lower the crash, like the typical roller coaster. And then when it crashes down, it can leave us feeling fatigued and craving more. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to get a little bit more sugar to have a bit more energy. Have you ever found yourself thinking or saying that? I need a sugar fix at 3 p.m. in the afternoon time, when you need a little something. So it can lead to cravings. And similarly, it can lead to not only energy dips and feeling fatigued, like if you need a nap in the afternoon, and mood swings. It has an impact on our hormone levels. Insulin itself is a hormone, and our hormones work generally, hopefully, a bit like an orchestra. Everyone has its place, and if one is out of whack, either too high or too low, it's going to impact all of the others. And particularly for women around perimenopause and menopause, as we reduce our female sex hormones, and for example, estrogen has over 400 functions in the body. It has protective effect on the heart, and it's a buffer for insulin as well. So when we don't have so much, we'll find that we're more sensitive to cravings. There are other reasons your blood sugar will increase, which I'm trying not to get into. I'm trying to just stick to the basics here around food. But because we're a little bit more sensitive to sugar, we might crave more. But conversely, we're not so insulin sensitive. I know it sounds a bit strange, so just bear with me on this one. We crave more, but yet our insulin is a bit more sluggish, doesn't have estrogen along. I think it's mainly estrogen, doesn't have the female hormones to kind of give it a little bit of oomph. It's like a turbo boost. And so we might find that we have to have more sugar, and insulin still, a bit sluggish, not working quite so well. So you might find that what was working when you were in your menstruating years doesn't work quite the same once you hit perimenopause and menopause. So a little bit of a conundrum there, craving more, but actually not working quite so efficiently. So we want insulin to be working more efficiently, because otherwise then that can lead to prediabetes and diabetes. The way I look at it, and I'm sure doctors would not agree, but I can really simplify things. When we head into prediabetes or metabolic syndrome, it's like insulin is overworked. It's got to its sort of repetitive strain. No, I'm not having any more. You've taken the mickey and I'm just having a lie down. So yeah, pre-diabetes. And the other things that can happen, and I'm not going to go into the whys, but just a few extra things, that it can increase aging, having too much sugar in the system. It can massively lead to inflammation. The blood can get a little bit sticky, and that's inflammation, which is also part of the aging. I had to look down at this one, which is ironic because it's brain fog. The brain can get quite foggy, and also the impact on anxiety. So that's quite a lot there, isn't it? If we are getting over reliant on our sugars in whatever way we're having them, those things can start to happen. If not now, then certainly down the line. And not least, then of course, there's the impact on our physical health, such as getting heavier. Fat around the middle is quite classic from having too much sugar. Fat on the hips and thighs tends to be more of a thyroid thing, whereas around the middle, it's definitely to do with sugar and adrenal insufficiency as well. And I just mean that in a way that we're tiring out our adrenal glands. There's an impact on sugar, from sugar on our adrenal glands, and wanting to produce more cortisol, which helps to stimulate the release of insulin and sugar. And I said I wasn't going to go into that, but that's a very brief look at how sugar impacts on the adrenal glands and cortisol, and too much cortisol is not very good, and then that can lead to anxiety. Right, I'm backtracking now. I wasn't going to go there, but but I couldn't help myself. And so two very simple signs which might indicate if you need a bit of a better relationship with sugar are cravings and fatigue. So if you've got either of those going on, then have a think about your relationship with sugar. Maybe start to think about what it is that you're eating and what's your go-to if you're feeling tired or you need calming or you need soothing. What do you tend to do? Do you have some kind of practices which are like reading or a nap or phoning a friend, or do you reach literally for the snacks and the sugar or food or drink or coffees with oat milk and sugar, syrups, snacks, those kind of things? And there are a few other things. These are kind of like the sub signs. If the thought of giving up sugar makes you twitchy, or you say to yourself, oh yeah, I can easily do that, but I'm not going to do it now because X, Y, and Z. If you need your sugar fix, like, but I need it. It's a bit like needing a coffee in the morning. That's also a little bit of a sign. You need something to give you some get up and go. That could be a blood sugar issue. Definitely if you find yourself snacking in between meals. And yeah, me too on that one. If you're perimenopausal or menopausal and your system isn't working quite so efficiently, and this is not every menopausal woman, but if you've had a lot of stress going on in your life and you've been exhausting your adrenal glands and your cortisol, then you're more likely to find that you've got a bit of an issue with sugar, like the cravings, but yet the insensitivity to insulin. And yeah, I've already said that the mood swings as well. So as well as the fatigue and the cravings, there's the mood swings. So that's a little bit of information. I hope you find that interesting, with some of the reasons why sugar is detrimental and some of the signs that you might have an unhealthy relationship with sugar. And just to finish up this particular video, I will give you a brief overview of what we'll be doing in the sugar reboot. It's a gentle sugar reboot, by the way. And this is not about going cold turkey. And, you know, full disclaimer, this is something that I've done several times myself. I do it myself when I teach it. So it's not a one and done. It might be for you, but for most people, particularly if you've had something in your life, like a major event, whether that's illness, job loss, relationship breakdown, death, and so on, those big things, moving as well. And things change, and then we just take another gentle look at what's going on. So the very first thing is the awareness piece, and that's going to be in the first week, having a look at what your current relationship is with sugar, where those things are, maybe looking at labels, taking photos of what you're eating or drinking and when, and what you're feeling as well. It can really affect your sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings, and we'll be looking at those things. Then in week 1, we start to take a little bit of action and start to make some swaps. So for the 3 weeks of the program that are active, we'll be starting to make some swaps. Possibly you might decide you want to go, I'm going to cut out X, and that's fantastic too. I'll be guiding you as to how you do the program in the way that's best for you, which will be different to what's best for me and best for the next person. And so that happens throughout the 3 weeks of the program. One of the things I'm going to encourage you to do is to take a little bit more time in between meals, particularly if you're a snacker and you can't go for more than 2 hours without a little something. I'll be encouraging you and explaining why it's good to stretch the time in between meals, so that you might be able to go between 4 and 6 hours between eating. And that's a good thing to do. That's so much better for our insulin in order to do that, and to have that space and to give insulin a bit of a rest more than anything. And starting to look a little bit at exercise as well, and how that's really useful. Starting to look a little bit at sleep as well, and why that's useful. Have you ever had a bad night, not having much sleep, and then finding yourself the next day wanting to have more sugary things or more coffee or more whatever your thing is that helps you think give you that little boost of energy, which yes, it does, but sleep is so important. So those are the things that we're going to be doing over the course of a month. I like to have just a good amount of time to get those things into practice, because for sure, I will totally expect you and me to try and fail and try and fail, try and fail, maybe 3 times, and then you find your equilibrium. You don't have to listen to anything that I say, but please do use me. There will be weekly calls. So common questions that come up, I'll be answering on the calls. There's a chance for you to be there live and to have your questions answered. Other than that, I'll be asking the things that come up, which will always help everybody when you listen in to say, yeah, I get that. I do that too. Maybe I can try that, something different. And always, always, there is a call for self-compassion and kindness. We'll be looking into emotions and how those play a role in our desire for having sugar. All of that is going to be in the month. And once you've purchased, then you can use that again in your own time, over and over, as many times as you like. And it is a gentle reboot. And it's a look at our relationship with ourselves and how we cope with things and how we can make some better choices, that you can be healthier and happier. And that's what it's all about for me. Please do email me if you've got any questions. It's fiona@thelifereboot.co.uk. Hope you found that helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.